Howdy, everybody. This is Dan Vaughn, voice of the Kansas City Monarchs, the Perth Heat in the Australian Baseball League, and part of Talking Baseball Australia. You're tuned to the Baseball Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Pachersky.
And I'm Tom Quirk, your co-host.
We're really excited. We've got a super special episode for you. We're joined by Titus Mutwiri. He's the president of the Baseball Federation of Kenya. Really cool guy. Tom actually found him on Reddit. And
That's true. I found him because I was on the baseball subreddit, and as I've mentioned probably thousands of times on this podcast, as a Victus sports worker and kind of a baseball bat enthusiast in general, you can see my little collection back here through the darkness.
Can't see it at all, but okay,
that's fine. You know it's there. You trust me. So I saw he posted a picture of like a lathe, and he was like making baseball bats, and he's basically like, hey, I need advice on, how do I make baseball bats? And I was like, well, I'm enthusiastic about this, and for once in my life, I might actually be equipped with the knowledge to help. So I hit him up and I gave him some pointers, and it came out he's the president of, the Baseball Federation of Kenya. And we got talking, and then I saw that he had made a request to see if there were any baseball podcasts out there that would host him. And I was like, you don't say?
Not only do we have a podcast that'll host him, we have had 85 listens over the course of our podcast. So
that's that's 8. How many episodes have we posted? 3. So that's like
we posted 4.
Okay, so that's like one 77 more than I thought, because I assumed you and me both listened to each one.
And then
that's about all I'm willing to give myself.
Exactly. I don't know how many people it was, but I'm assuming it was not 85 people, because some of them were me listening to it to make sure it was good.
Right.
So
now, did you on Twitter? I came out of what has largely been Twitter retirement. I post on Twitter is like my highlights from Elden Ring of me just like smoking noobs. But I came out of retirement because I saw, who was it? Was it Brett Laurie? Brett Laurie posted about, hey, are there any good baseball podcasts out there that I can listen to? And I went on there and I simped for my own podcast. I forget what I wrote precisely, but
it was hopefully along the lines of at the Baseball Podcast. You already know. By the way, if you want to reach out, at the Baseball Pod 2 on Twitter.
If you want to reach out, which you do.
Right, which you do. I was on Twitter on the Baseball Podcast page, and I saw it, and so I commented and was like, "Oh my gosh, Brett! Let us know what you think. It'd be so cool to have you on and get your perspective as a Canadian baseball player." And he has yet to answer. Likely never will. But
hold out hope.
We're trying.
It's possible.
Also, if you want to email us, feel free to email us at thebaseballpod@gmail.com. I'm just going to plug it right there.
Right.
So
we should also, do you want to plug Titus's I was about to say his link tree.
Yeah.
Plug his stuff. So Titus can be reached at Baseball Federation of Kenya at gmail.com. That's Baseball Federation of Kenya at gmail.com. And they're a passionate group of guys, and they have a lot of participation. Actually, mainly what they need is they need people who are equally passionate to maybe give them a little support and give them some props and signal boost them a little bit as well, because they have a great brand, and really the problem is they're just they're trying to get it out there to the right people.
Right. So Titus he's like Tom said, he's a super passionate guy. He's putting out his own time and his own money to grow baseball in Kenya, and he's doing a really good job. He's not just, tilting at windmills. So Titus is doing awesome work. I hope you guys enjoy our conversation with him, and I hope if you can help that you reach out to him and you can help. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side of the interview. Welcome back to the Baseball Podcast. We're here with Titus Mutwiri, the president of the Baseball Federation of Kenya. Titus, it's an honor to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad we could get you on. My first question for you is just tell me about baseball in Kenya. Tell me about, the state of the game and how it's going.
Thank you very much, Ethan. And baseball in Kenya, if I may start, my name is Titus Mutwiri. Yes, as I've been introduced, and I'm the lead of Baseball Federation of Kenya, the president or the chair of the organization. Baseball in Kenya has had a long history a long history whereby it started as it was introduced by the U.S. Marines in the late 1970s. Then it has been having an episodes of peaking and going down. But I can say that since the year 2002, baseball was now launched strongly in different parts of the country, but very close or proximal to the capital city of Nairobi. And I played baseball in late 90s when I was in high school. I was a shortstop and I enjoyed myself, but because baseball was not a household name in Kenya by then, when I left high school, I never found it in college. So I had a moment whereby there was no baseball in my life. I think for a number of years. And then after college, that's when before I launched into the workspace, I found baseball again near the capital city of Nairobi and its environs. And since then, I was able to mingle and work with the people who are leading the sport by then. And we have been growing since that time. And maybe I'll talk about this later. I got into leadership of the federation.
That's definitely something that we would like to get into as well. And you answered my personal biggest question, and probably everybody's biggest question was, how did baseball get started in Kenya? And it's interesting that it was the Marines that brought it over. I feel like that's probably the case in a lot of different places. I think that's how it got started in Japan. So you played baseball in high school in Kenya?
Yes, I played baseball in the late 90s because we had this Japanese expatriate who was staying close to where my high school was. I schooled in a place called Meru School, which is close to the central part of the country, not too far away, near the Mount Kenya's slopes of Mount Kenya. And this Japanese was so passionate about the sport. So he introduced baseball in our boys' school and also introduced softball in the girls' school that was next to us. And that's how we started playing baseball. It was the first time I saw a bat, a ball, and a glove when I was 14 years old, because that's the first time. I'd never heard of the sport. I only heard of it first time when I got into high school. Right. And I loved it. So it was out of this, the passionate Japanese man who introduced the sport to us that I can say I am playing it now. I don't know if I never went to that school and if I never found baseball there, if I could be in baseball now. But fate has its design.
So are you saying that you sort of just happened to find the one place where baseball is played and that was just that one school where that guy started it? Or is it more popular in Kenya all over?
Back then, this was the story about 20 plus years ago. Okay. It was not in many schools. It was in very isolated places, especially where there was maybe some US people from the US who want to come and because sometimes there are people who know the sport, but they are not interested. Right. But then I found myself in this school where there was a Japanese who was staying nearby and he was interested. So he donated equipment. He used to bring them from Japan. And then after that, definitely I signed up and I've never left. But also as it is now, we have many expatriates, and maybe I will be talking about that in a short while, who are working in different places in the country, and they are so passionate about the sport, and they have been very eager to introduce the sport within their workspaces. But also now the federation, which is now the core, or rather the body that is mandated with the development of the sport, has been very, very instrumental in spreading the sport in different areas of the country. As we speak now, it is not like when I was in school back in the days. Right. Currently, we have baseball being played in over 20 counties out of the 47 counties in Kenya, or we can say in 6 regions out of the 8 regions in the country. There are pockets of baseball in almost every other town. But also the work now that is there is to ensure that it's well entrenched, that the skills or rather the coaches are well trained, and there is linkage with international baseball bodies and players across the world. And that is part of the work that the Federation is doing, because the Baseball Federation of Kenya is tasked in developing the sport across the country. And our work has been to see how we can entrench it into schools, how we can entrench it into communities, and how we can also use amateurs to keep on inspiring the growth of the sport in every space that is available. So when I became the president of the Federation in 2018, April, my goal ideally was well cut out, that I wanted to see the sport get into as many communities as possible. And we have introduced the sport in many communities in the country now. As just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we've come from the coastal region of Mombasa, that is along the Indian Ocean. And there is great baseball being played there by boys and girls. We had a huge coastal tournament, and we had over close to 200 people, or 200 kids all gathered together with only one goal: to play baseball. And they did this for 3-4 days, and the event was very, very successful. And now this is only the coastal region. So when you come to the eastern region, there is a lot of baseball there, as well as the western part of the country, and also the Great Rift Valley. So what we have now is that baseball has grown in pockets across the country. What is important is now to expand it from within those pockets and make sure that it is well entrenched, and hopefully make it a household name in Kenya.
200 players in a 4-day tournament is like absolutely no joke in a country where baseball doesn't have a long history. You know, like I play baseball and I've never participated in anything with 200 players, you know, so like that's very notable to me. And I'm assuming it was like a youth tournament, right? That was what you said?
Yeah, it was a youth tournament, but a mix of youth and 2 or so schools that play baseball. So we had some few kids travel from the capital city of Nairobi and go link up with other kids from the coastal city of Mombasa, which is 500 kilometers away.
Wow.
And they were able to link up and play. And maybe later on, I'll send you some few photos. And it was good. And this now is like just a coastal region tournament. As we speak tonight, my technical team is in the Rift Valley region, in a place called Elbagon, and they are doing a selection for under 17s who will make up the national team, because we expect Uganda to come in the country in the next 3 weeks, and we need to have the national team ready for that. So they are doing some selection for under 12s and under 17 in the Rift Valley region, and this continues until tomorrow.
So I had a question I wanted to ask you about that, because you're talking about youth baseball and you're talking about the national team. Is there any possibility to get like a Kenyan team in the Little League World Series?
We do not have a Kenyan team in the Little League, but we have communities whereby young people are playing baseball. And ideally, the Federation is the one that has been running these activities, and hopefully in the coming days, we will be able to have Little League be more also get grounds and roots in the country, because we've not experienced much of that effect. But it's because of the way that we are doing things around. But it would be a good thing. But we have kids as young as 12 years old who are playing baseball, not organized in a Little League setting, but either in community setting or in school setups. and they are playing baseball. But we do not have a strong Little League connection. But that's a good dream that we look forward into. But maybe to mention some of the reasons is, as you know, Little League is a system which is a community system whereby parents are also very supportive of the kids, probably being involved in their skills development. But in Kenya, we have a scenario whereby the children are learning about the sport before the parents. And they go home to tell them that we've learned a new sport. It's called baseball or softball, and this is how it goes. So you find that the kids are ahead of the parents, even in the knowledge of the sport and all that. And before we get to buy out the parent to be able to understand and to participate in the skills development of the child, ideally you realize already the child is all grown and can survive on their own. So that's the disconnect that is there. The parents, not many parents in Kenya know about baseball. It's the children who actually learn about it before the parents.
Right. So you're laying the groundwork for the future generations of Kenyan baseball when the parents can be involved because they'll learn it.
Right, because they learned it when they were kids.
So is there any government involvement, any government funding at all for the federation, or is it all, donation based?
Ideally, Baseball Federation of Kenya is registered, is instituted in the Ministry of Sports in the government of Kenya, under the government of Kenya. And just like other countries, we have acts of parliament and statutes that are laid either by the government that govern federations or sports organizations. So Baseball Federation of Kenya is registered with the Ministry of Sports, anchored under the Ministry of Sports, but also we work very closely with the National Olympics Committee of Kenya. So the Ministry of Sports and the National Olympics Committee of Kenya come together, and they are very, very supportive of the sport. Yes, baseball is a small federation compared to Soccer, Football Federation of Kenya and the like, but we still receive that support. However, it's important to mention that mostly the government sees, I think in Kenya and many other third-world countries, you have to get to the top to get attention so that you can get the government's attention. So the government may not be involved in the very foundational aspects of your growth process and all that, and the skills and the coaching and all that. But when you have a national team and the national team wants to travel to compete for an international event or a tournament outside the country, or you are hosting a visiting country, then the government comes in to support, but not for other activities that are happening in the communities or at the foundational levels.
Okay. So it is more donation based at the moment.
Yes, so at the moment it's more donation based because for equipment, maybe it's important also to mention that we do not have companies that are producing equipment in Kenya. So we will either get donations from Japan, mostly the United States, or our friends who are coming and visiting the two countries probably carry some stuff into the country and support the growth of the sport. So our friendships with people who are from countries where baseball is well developed have been very helpful in the past. The only challenge has been the consistency of doing that, because maybe you get someone and then they are visiting maybe for their first time, they bring in some few things, some few gloves and bats, and that's all. So if they don't come again, you have to look for another person. And, creating these linkages and these networks is never easy, ideally. You have to build trust and also get someone who would wish to sacrifice their time. I had a gentleman who came from Michigan some 1 month or so ago, and he carried 3 boxes of baseball stuff, some helmets and shins and all that. And it takes sacrifice for someone to do that. And when you are looking at now, you're trying to grow the sport in a country, and it's a big country, those small donations are good. They may not be enough, so it will take quite some time for the sport to get to every other community, but it's an addition to what is already available. So I think it's also such a blessing to have those kind of donations and those kind of supports.
So,
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, how can people donate? Do they go to your website, or do they reach out on, Facebook or Twitter or something? Like, what's the best way to donate something if you have equipment or money that you want to help with?
Yeah, so there are two ways, because like we have the Baseball Federation of Kenya, which can receive support of equipment, and I need to mention that also we are affiliated with the World Baseball and Softball Confederation Africa region, and also the World Baseball and Softball Confederation globally, that is WBSC, and we are fully recognized bona fide members. So we also get support for trainings from WBSC, and sometimes support for equipment, but comes in at a slow rate, really, not to an extent that we can be happy that this is geared towards developing the sport in a country in Africa that is quite passionate to its growth. So we get that kind of support in piecemeal. So anyone who wants to support the federation definitely can reach out to us through the federation email, Baseball Federation of Kenya @gmail.com. Baseball Federation of Kenya @gmail.com, and then we are able to have a discourse and then organize on how we can receive their support. So that could be one way. If there is a donation of equipment, there are issues with customs when you are sending equipment to another country. So we need sometimes to know what is coming in, so that we can prepare for exemptions from customs, from duty, before the stuff leaves where it is coming from. Because once it is shipped, we cannot negotiate when it's already here. But we can negotiate before the shipment is sent. So that's also another possibility. So all this kind of discussion is very, very important, because we can then come out with a way of approaching it, and see also what we need most and all that. So anyone who would like to donate, I think that would be the best way that we get to talk, we get to discuss, so that you can see how to go about it. That is for equipment. But then there is also another aspect when it comes to the programs that we are running, the small programs that feed the federation with the players, because the federation works with the national team. The duty of the federation is to ensure that the coaches are trained, that is conducting coaches clinics. They ensure that the umpires and scorers are trained and certified, but also they ensure that all categories of the national team is well prepared, whether it is under 12, under 15, under 17 or 18, under 23, and seniors, both for men and for women. So that is the responsibility of the federation. But now all these people who are feeding into the federation come from teams. They come from clubs, different clubs across the country. That's where the greatest challenge is, because how are these teams sustained? And sometimes, number one, they don't have equipment. They don't have enough equipment. So you find kids waiting for one to use the glove for some time, and then they share. The other person sits down and then waits for the colleague or the teammate to also use it in practice for some time. You realize maybe they don't have enough balls, and they must either form a circle because they don't have enough for one-to-one person to throw and catch. So you realize that in the communities, that's where there is a great need. of how we can help these children to to have all what they need and keep on developing their skills. I started an academy late last year, early this year, when I realized that we have challenges on consistency and sustainability. I started an academy so that I can inspire even the people that I lead and other people within the country on how they can use an approach of academies to develop something that is sustainable, something that is consistent, and whereby they can have a follow-up of the kids that they are training baseball too. And we have children in the Maasai Land Baseball Academy between the ages of 13, 14 to around 21. And the numbers are growing. We are getting to close to 100. And that is getting the children within the communities, within the schools that are around a particular area, get them into the field. Of course, we don't have baseball parks in Kenya, so we use sometimes soccer fields. So getting a soccer field when it's not in use, and then we get to practice there. Like now, I've just come from a practice session that started at 10 a.m. and has gone all the way to 5 p.m. With a break of lunch. And all these kids are there playing the sport and trying to become better in it. But you realize now all these children will need balls, they will need gloves, they will need snacks while they are there. They will need some lunch and all that. And remembering that you've said that the parents don't know the system of Little League and how they can come in and support, of course, they are absent. So it's us who are coaching, who keep on telling the kids and inspiring them that they need to come tomorrow, they need to come next weekend. And when they come there, they probably want to find the equipment are there, and then there is water, there are snacks. When they get tired, they can have a bite so that they can sustain that 8-hour or so session of training. So that burden now is to the coach or people like us now who have the vision for that kind of an academy. And I have realized that it's quite tasking. It weighs heavy on someone, but definitely there is a will. And where there is a will, there is always a way. And I think for the last 4 or 5 months that we have been training, we've not missed any session. And when the kids are out for holiday, we meet 3 times in a week, from morning to evening, doing nothing else, playing baseball. And from there, they get to participate in tournaments. They get to go out, like as I mentioned some 3 weeks ago, they took a journey 500 kilometers away. It was probably their first journey for a long time. And when they experience this, they want to stay very close to the sport. I have now, some of them have graduated from grade 8, they're going to high school, and they don't want to go to high schools that are far away. They're telling me we want to stay in a high school that is close so that we can be coming to play baseball. And that tells you that it has already gotten into their system, and it's something that they're gonna do for a long, long time. So the challenge there is now how to sustain such programs, how to sustain such academies. And because you don't receive support from the government for this, unless you get a donor, then you do it from your own savings. And that is what I'm doing.
That's awesome. I
and
mean,
it's like inspiring.
It really is. And it's something that we take for granted over here, that, baseball stuff's just always around, and it's, you got to work really hard. Really
it's hard not to find baseball stuff over here, because there's so much of it in circulation.
So we're talking about equipment problems. And one of the things that I know about you that I think is super, super cool is you have your own bat making operation, right? Tell me a little bit about that, how you make your own bats for the Kenyan Baseball Federation.
Yeah, so when we started the bat making thing is actually for the Maasai Land Baseball Academy. When we started the Maasai Land Baseball Academy, we realized we had quite a number of challenges. I could go to the second-hand market to get some few gloves, sometimes coming in with second-hand stuff, sports items, and from a shipment, sometimes you could get just one or two. So we struggled with that, and until when we had almost some half the number of gloves that we need, and we started getting a bit comfortable with that. But then we had an issue with the bats, and we mostly use aluminum bats, but also it's good also to try the wooden bats, especially sometimes in international games and tournaments, you find yourself using wooden bats. And we thought, now that we don't have aluminum bats, some of them that we end were breaking or cracking, what do we do? So I thought I need to get a good carpenter, someone who works with wooden stuff, and I show them how a bat looks like, because maybe there is a high probability they have never seen it. Right. And then I tell them to produce an exact replica of what I will give them. So I got a bat that we used for a pre-Olympics qualifier tournament that we had in 2019, from a bat from WBSC, an approved bat. And I took it to the carpenter and I told him to produce a similar one. So he didn't have all the calipers and all this, but he managed to get his act together. And when I came back, I realized he had produced an exact replica of the bat that we had given to him. Okay. I was astonished because he had not seen one. He just said he needs to make something like this. And he did it. So we asked ourselves, okay, here it looks so good, what do we need to do next? So we thought of branding it. So we took it through all those processes, and we branded it Maasai Land Baseball League. And we have some few now that we have produced from hardwood. We don't have the type of tree that I think is used in some countries, like ash something. I need to remember the name of the tree. So we are using either mahogany or another blue gum, and I'm looking for another than hardwood that I'm told is also quite good. But when we tried the mahogany, it was slightly less dense than the normal bat. So we want to see how we can get it a little bit heavier. But what we have now is useful, and the kids are enjoying it, and it's really, really helpful. So even if we don't have the aluminum bats, then we can make do with our own made wooden bats, and we can produce them en masse if we want, but at the moment we are just producing for our own use, and we can start supplying to other teams across the country, but it was a great breakthrough. So I look forward for a time that we can get also a leather industry that can make gloves. Because one of the things is now we must become more innovative in Africa, and we must look for local solutions to help solve the challenges that we have. So the bat issue, that one I can say we can probably take care of, although it's still maybe expensive for every other team, because at the end of the day we are using around $30 to produce one, but maybe if we are producing many, that can come down. So we hope that we can get away of also sometime in future, I don't know how many years, to produce our own leather gloves. That would be really, really good.
That's absolutely incredible, man. It sounds like you're laying the groundwork for like a self-sustaining baseball world in Kenya, like donations are great, and I hope people keep sending them, but now you're getting, and you even said you want to get leather involved so you can start making your own gloves. It sounds like you're really trying to get it to be where you don't need to rely on the generosity of others. You can start doing it by yourself. So one of the things that I want to ask with bats is, let's go down the line, right? 10 years, 20 years down the line. And let's say baseball's flourishing and you're making all your own bats and gloves and everything. Do you see yourself being able to sort of spread baseball throughout Africa as a whole to like neighboring countries. I know South Africa has a pretty good program, and I think Uganda is sort of a country on the rise, but I think for most African countries, they're kind of in the same boat as you, where it's not as big. Do you see yourself being able to sort of grow it on a bigger scale than just Kenya down the road?
Thank you, Ethan. We don't have an option. Like, that's the only direction that we can take, because we feel part of the sport. When I am not doing sports, I'm a medical scientist. I teach at the university, but I feel that this is something that the children of this country need to just keep, and grow in an awesome way. Besides the normal schooling, the conventional schooling, they need sport. And those who are playing soccer need to play soccer. Not all of them are into it. Those who are playing baseball need to play baseball, and so on and so forth. And we have a responsibility as sports leaders to make sure that we leave the legacy of building a foundation whereby the future generations can ride on. And this is ensuring that we form a platform that they can come and manage the sport, develop their skills in an easier way, get in coaches to coach trainers to train coaches in the country, because that is how we are looking at it. In 3 weeks, in July, we are getting some few coaches, trainers from Japan to come and train the coaches locally. And we anticipate to have close to 30 to 40 coaches in the same place being trained for a period of a number of days. Besides that particular training, we have another one in December. We have some people still coming from the United States to come and also train coaches for a period of 1 week. And these coaches will be from all parts of the country, and they will go back to their communities, to their institutions, to their schools or universities, and they'll keep on passing on the skills that they learned. And there will be a ripple effect of that. And every person doing their part, ideally the growth and the expansion of baseball will become assured. That's why I'm saying we don't have a choice. We cannot, at this point, we must ensure that the growth is assured. And as long as, I can talk for myself, as long as I'm where I am at the moment, I'll definitely ensure that this happens. And we have many more academies, because I started the Maasai Lad Baseball Academy to influence, or rather to show the rest how we can do it in a more sustainable way. If we have, for instance, 10 academies to start with in the country, then they grow to 20, and then grow to 50. And ideally what will happen is that these academies will be able to develop to a level that baseball will become the sport of choice for many children in the country, many kids in the country. And I can tell you, it may not take as long as you've mentioned. It might take less, because the other vision that I have for these kids is that one day we don't have MLB scouting in Kenya at the moment. And I agree with you. South Africa is ahead of us. Uganda is also doing fantastically well, and that's why we keep on playing with Uganda. We were there in December. They are coming in June to play with Kenya, and we need to keep this happening. I have contacted the WBSC to see if we can have continental or women baseball championships, and we are discussing on how we can have that happen in the next few months to come. So we hope that with the expansion of academies, definitely many kids will be into the sport. And if kids love the sport, you cannot stop its growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
So that answered because my next question was going to be, are you working with other countries? And it sounds like you are. Is the WBSC I don't know how it works. Do they help provide funding or equipment or anything, or do they just get people together talking and sort of facilitate conversation?
Well, mostly the WBSC supports with equipment, and I can tell not enough because we've not received equipment for the last, I think, 4 years or so, or even 5 or more. And we are receiving the first consignment in a few weeks from now.
Okay.
And it will not be enough for the many players that we have in the country. So simply what I'm saying is that we have more players than equipment in Kenya. WBSC is not supplying enough. They are doing something, but I can confidently say it's not enough. That is why we are networking, looking for partnerships, collaborations, friendships, so that people can then influence or rather give in more aid into the tools of trade.
So have you had any interaction with MLB? I know I think Jimmy Rollins went and did some stuff in Uganda and sent them some equipment. And obviously there's been 2 players from South Africa to make the major leagues. Have you had any interaction with MLB? Have they reached out at all to help or anything?
Not in the near past, because I have tried to look for contacts on how we can get MLB participate or rather come in and do scouting. We have sent some few coaches into elite camp in South Africa in the past few years. So we have around 3 or so who have gone through the program and they have come back and started training. Uganda might have probably had more opportunities, but we've not had MLB coaches come to Kenya or scouts come to Kenya per se to scout or even to support or to give any kind of donation. Well, not that we've not tried, we've tried, and every other, sometimes we can give them communications or even tag them into our posts and all that, but we've not had a very official linkage, and we would be glad if we got one.
Yeah, it sounds like getting their attention has been a goal of yours on more than just a scouting level, even a support level, because I feel like even a small amount of support from something like MLB or like NPB in Japan would probably be like, world changing for you guys. It sounds like you guys might be able to find the infrastructure, down the road. Like you mentioned with the bats, you're able to make bats. And it's really a matter of just scale for that. You might be able to find leather to make gloves. Something that stood out to me in that conversation was there's still the issue of baseballs, which might be the easiest thing to like send over. And I know that it's easy to go through them quickly, but if you could get the attention of anybody with any sort of infrastructure and they just sent baseballs, I'm sure that would be a huge help for you guys. Again, I think we talked about this before when we linked up on Reddit, and you mentioned it again on the podcast, how the main way of getting stuff over there has been people like taking it over, of their own free will. People who have the financial, capital to just send stuff and the willingness, I think that sounds like that would be something that you guys would benefit from in a huge way. So, for any listeners out there.
So if I can jump onto that, Titus, one of the things I did an article about the Greek national baseball team, right? And one of the things that they did in the Olympics about 20 years ago was they reached out to Peter Angelos, as the owner of the Baltimore Orioles, and he's a Greek American guy, and he basically provided the funding to get all these guys their passports, get their Greek citizenship, fly them to and from, that kind of thing. Obviously, that's like a big fish. I don't know if there are any Kenyan owners of a baseball team. I would doubt it. But one guy that I do know of specifically, there's a pitcher on the Braves named Tuki Tucson. His mother is the daughter of a Kenyan diplomat. So there's a connection for you if you want to reach out to Tuki Tucson. I don't know how you can get a hold of him, but that's something to get plugged. But basically what I wanted to ask was, like Tom was saying, do you have any benefactors, something like that, people who are really interested in the success of Kenyan baseball, who are willing to try and help the program, financially, things like that, maybe in baseball or outside of the baseball industry?
What comes off my hand is some few expatriates who have been here for a long time. We have some of them from USA and Canada, and they are trying to put up a baseball field. They're actually not trying, they're putting up a baseball field in one of the public universities. And the public university has donated a field, I think 5 to 10 acres, if I am getting it right.
Wow.
And they want now they have started grading, clearing the bushes and all that. And the next step is now to set up the grounds and make it a playable space before probably we put other things. As I said, we don't have a baseball park, but then if we have an internationally dimensioned kind of space to play, then that would be a big plus. But what they are doing, they will definitely have some dugouts and all that, and a good space where people can come, whether from within the country or even we can host some international events, and then people can come and enjoy. So once that field is up, it will be the banned field in the country, but maybe it will be the best of all. We should be able to bid for hosting of many other continental tournaments, and definitely it will be a great seller of the sport in the country. So that kind of support, we definitely find it through such means, whereby we have such expatriates who are interested in seeing the growth and the development of the sport in the country. Not as many Kenyans understand baseball to that level because it requires definitely that heavy investment. The difference is in soccer, they just know you get into the field with one ball and you are good to go. But in baseball, it's not like that. Every child will need a glove, and they will need to be in good playing attire, and they will probably need a bat at some point, and balls need to be plenty. So you find the investment is heavier. And because of that, that has also restricted the growth of the sport in the schools. Because the schools, when you go and introduce the sport, they need two things. They need equipment and they need a coach, because the person who is there maybe knows all the other sports, but not baseball. They know basketball, they know volleyball, they know handball, they know soccer, but baseball, they don't. So you need to take time and develop the skills of the coaches. Because of that, definitely it takes a little bit more time. Apart from now that we've come up, or rather there is the baseball 5, which I definitely know that you have heard about, and it does not require equipment, just a softball, and you bat with your hand. That's easier, and it is also gaining ground in elementary schools in the country, because it's easier to manage and does not require a very big space and does not require investment with equipment. But then it's also a way through towards playing of baseball, because when someone understands the skills and the techniques of playing baseball 5, then they are able to graduate from there when they get equipment to play baseball 9. So we do not have a lot of homegrown support, but sometimes we have support from some expatriates and also the government now when we have international events.
Cool. I like the baseball 5 thing in particular, because I like the adaptation, where it's like, listen, we can't have, like, we're having difficulty getting equipment out there. We have this alternative that builds all the same skills, and it doesn't take up as much space, and we can just have kids play that until they get to, it sounds like you guys start largely around like age 12, like with the teams, So like once they get to 12, they've been working on those skills. It's not a huge adjustment to adjust to swinging a bat. It's off to the races at that point as far as development with the kids. We were talking a little bit right before you jumped back on for the second part about how impressive it is that, I mean, 1, 200 kids showing up for a tournament, and 2, you mentioned that at the Maasai Land Academy that you have kids there for like 5, 6, 7 hours a day. Yeah. Like that level of dedication to me would be really promising, because like you can't even really get people to do that here.
Yeah, that doesn't happen a lot here.
Yeah. That's that in my opinion bodes really well for you guys. And it sounds like, to me, the way that I would sum it up is that your guys' passion is like, it's all there and it's building, it's starting to snowball a little bit, and it's really just equipment issues that you guys could use some help working out. And I'd liked Ethan's suggestion with Tuki Tuisan. Hopefully that's something that you guys could maybe look at. And
yeah, we know the Braves are listening, so
yeah, obviously, Tuki, you're listening.
Let me ask you this, Titus. What are the other sports that you're competing with? I know that you said soccer a lot, but what are the other sports that are big in Kenya, or are there not a lot of sports and baseball has a pretty clear path?
Well, I am being in sports. Definitely, we have the National Olympics Committee, which brings together all the other sports, all the other federations in the country, and there are close to 30 federations. Okay. All of them playing different sports, from volleyball to some beach sports to hardball to athletics. And athletics is big in Kenya, you know that, because of the Maradonas, the great Maradonas come from here. And we have also swimming, we have cricket, we have hockey. Hockey.
Really?
Like field hockey, right? Like on grass?
Yes.
Oh, I thought I was like ice hockey.
Ice hockey would be hard to play, I would think.
Yeah, it was like Canada reaching out across the ocean.
Yeah, so what we don't have as much is the American, you call it American football or American soccer?
Yeah, American football.
Yeah.
American football,
Gridiron football.
It's not... Yeah, it's not as grown here, but then I think, of course, there is always someone who will come with some inspiration to just introduce and see its growth. Although we found one Kenyan player who has played American football in the United States at a high level.
Oh, really?
Yes, I don't know where he is at the moment, but it has been there, and we have all sorts of sports, maybe all of them, archery and all that. So we have quite a number of them.
So where does baseball fit into all that? Is baseball becoming one of the more popular sports, or are there still a lot of sports that are ahead of it when it comes to kids playing?
There are quite a number of sports that are ahead of it, because, and mostly, let's say soccer is the one that has crowded every space, because it's one of the oldest or the easiest sport that kids have found themselves playing. Before they find a normal ball, like when I was young, 20 plus years ago, we used to just wrap together pieces of material and all that, and polythene, and we would use a tight rope or string, strong string, and wild it together, and we come up with a ball that would throw it in the field, and we start playing. Right. And this soccer, kids start playing soccer when they are as little as 3-4 years, even at home. So it's something that they grow with. The challenge is that they don't get a chance to represent the country. Probably from 1 million kids, you will probably have only one that will make it the way to the national team, or even to play for the country. But with other sports, there is a diversification, and those who manage to diversify from soccer then have got a better chance to develop further and even to play more, because those who are playing soccer for one reason or another, they get to a point and they find they can't go beyond there, so they drop out mostly. But those who find themselves playing other sports, because they are not played by so many people, they will find themselves sticking to it and keeping on doing it for a longer time. And that's now what's happening with baseball, because those who are in it definitely expect to stay there for quite some time, and they expect to keep doing it for a long time. So we hope that we can keep influencing many more coaches and also training many more, so that they can keep on inspiring kids to get their skills right and to make it an intrinsic sport, to love it from the blood, and from there then we will see its growth. We are also trying to bring in parents now, like in the Masai Lad Baseball Academy. We are bringing in parents. We are making parents involved in the development of the child, so we keep updating what is happening, and the parents are able to. Some of them have never seen it played. They have never come to the field, but at least they get the updates of what is happening. So we hope that the future generation of other parents that will come later will find this as an entrenched practice, and they will be able to participate in the development of the skills for their children. So that's what is happening at the moment.
Well, that sounds like you guys are on a good path. Really fast, I see your Kenya shirt there. Do you guys have any merchandise or anything that you sell for the Kenya baseball team?
We are producing one very soon for the Masai Land Baseball Academy. We got someone do the designs for us and everything. So we have them done, but not produced. And I hope very soon we should be able to do some mass production. And when we do that, we should be able to get the system of what we require to start selling some merchandise to anyone who is interested across the world.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll totally buy one, man.
Yeah, we'll be all over that.
We'll have you on again in a little while and see how Kenyan baseball is doing. How's that sound?
Thank you very much, and much appreciated for having me on set tonight. And I really hope that we can keep this discourse going, because it's by doing this that we get to inspire many other Kenyans and also other people from across the world who would be in a position to help the growth of the sport that they love in places where the sport is taking shape. And I think we welcome that kind of support. And if anyone is interested, then they can hit us up either on Baseball Federation of Kenya at gmail.com, or if they would like to support whatever is happening in the communities, like for instance, what we are doing in the Masai Land Academy, they can still get us at Masai Land Baseball Academy at gmail.com. And Masai Land is MAA and 1 S.
This has been terrific, man. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to say?
It's just to give my vision for the development of baseball in Kenya, to just break it down in 1 minute.
Yeah, please.
My vision is that in the years to come, we will have tens, if not hundreds, of academies in Kenya playing baseball, boys and girls playing baseball, because we have so many mental health issues across the world. The more we give children a chance to play, the more we help them grow in a complete and wholesome perspective, because we need to take care of their mental growth, their physical growth, their spiritual growth, and also their emotional growth. And I hope that you can be able to reach out to as many kids as possible through baseball. The second one is I would love to see many more facilities come up in Kenya. We only have, this time is when we're having the third, probably in the fourth baseball field, and not a baseball park, just a field that is set for baseball. I hope that in the near future, we can have many more, so that kids in Kenya can play in a space that they own, because now they are playing mostly either in soccer fields. And when the soccer guys come, then they start pushing each other to the side. And of course, being a bigger bully, you realize that the baseball kids may be put aside. So I would like to see minimal fields designed for baseball, for the sport of baseball. That would be very impressive. That thing, and the bigger one is to see we can collaborate with MLB so that in the years to come, it must not be tomorrow or next year, but we must start today so that we grow in an exponential manner. And in the years to come, then we can have many more Africans and hopefully Kenyans playing in the Major League Baseball. Yeah. And the other one is also not leaving women behind. I'm very passionate about women baseball also and women in sport. I would like to see them entrenched. Those 4 things are things that are so passionate to me. Baseball academies, sports for grounds that are specifically meant for baseball as a sport, and then the participation of Kenyans in future in MLB, and also the growth of women baseball in the country. And I think with that, I will rest happy.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely, man. That's wonderful. I love all the work that you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that we can help out. Titus, thanks so much for your time. I hope we didn't keep you
thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Ethan. All the best.
It's been great, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Goodbye.
Titus, thanks again so much for coming on the show. It was awesome to have you, and we really appreciate your time. Tom, what a cool guy. What a genuine guy. What a nice guy.
I know. Dude, it was like sometimes in America you get a little bored of like baseball people, in the sense that like there's a lot of people who are just kind of like, I kind of like baseball, you know, I like to play and whatever, you know. And then you meet a guy like Titus who's just like
lives and breathes it,
dedicated to it in a way that, like, honestly, even here in like the baseball capital of the world, you don't see a lot. And I think that that's partially why it seems like baseball in Kenya, I mean, it's certainly doing better than I would have assumed prior to speaking with Titus.
Absolutely,
you know? Yeah. If you asked me like point blank, you know, just cold open, hey, how do you think baseball in Kenya is doing? I'd probably be like, well, I'm sure it'll be there eventually.
I didn't even know they played it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I thought was so cool about Titus was, first of all, I said this in the interview, he's laying the groundwork for the future of baseball Kenya. So he's not just trying to get these kids on a field and see what they can do, and maybe somebody's good enough to go play in the US or whatever, which would be cool. But he's creating his own bats. He just said he wants to get a leather company involved so he can make mitts. Obviously, I'm sure balls are the next thing. He's trying to step up donations. He's making connections with all these other countries, and he's even moving up in the world. You know, talking to Uganda and South Africa, like the next tier of baseball countries, right. South Africa,
and they got a field in the works too, by the way.
And they've got a field in the works, like he said. He's laying the groundwork for 50 years from now, Kenya to be a baseball powerhouse in Africa. And Tom, I'm convinced, I do a lot of reading about international baseball, and one of, like, Australia, for example, has an Australian Baseball Hall of Fame. And of course they have guys like Grant Balfour in there who are awesome players. Mm-hmm. But they have a lot of guys in there that aren't household names that you'll never have heard of, who maybe were just good players before it was big. But a lot of times the guys who are like, kind of like in the MLB Hall of Fame, they have, you know, pioneers, guys who helped grow.
Trailblazers.
That's Titus. That's
absolutely
Titus.
Yeah.
100 years from now, when there's been 50 Kenyan MLB players, and, you know, there's been guys to all-star teams and everything, there's going to be the Titus Mutwiri Baseball Academy in Kenya, and there's going to be the Titus Mutwiri Field, and there's going to be the Titus Mutwiri Tournament. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there are other guys doing great work too, and I don't know who they are, and I apologize. But
listen, I'm sure they're going to name stuff after all those guys too. We just don't know them. So
Titus is going to be a baseball legend in Kenya.
Yeah.
And like, I can tell just from the way he's talking about it that it's real and it's growing. And even if it doesn't overtake soccer, and even if it doesn't become,
well, it probably won't, Kenya, if we're being honest, but like,
there's a good chance
it doesn't have to.
I mean, with the way he's talking about it, I don't know anything about it. I've never been there, but I could totally see a Kenyan major leaguer in the next 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, how cool would that be? And I feel like Titus, there's a lot of the credit for the way it's growing and the way it'll continue to grow.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, not to take any credit from, you know, the coaches and everything that he mentioned, and I'm sure he's got like support staff and everything. You know, he's not the only guy, but It sounds like a lot of this is sort of like just sheer force of will that he's pushing this forward.
Well, and he also said he's a medical scientist too. So like,
Yeah, like he's not doing this like
I
as
don't.
his just his full-time job. Like this is like his
Right.
other full-time job.
That's a demanding job. He's not like, yeah, he's not like working at McDonald's like 20 hours a week and then just doing it. And like, this isn't his full-time job. It's just what he wants to do with his life. And
Yeah.
one of the things that he said that I thought was really cool that we sort of skipped past was, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of like, you need to give kids sports to give them something to like better their lives, basically. Like the world has such problems with like mental health, and people have so many problems just in their own heads, and he was like, sports basically is an outlet for that. And so Titus is obviously wants baseball to grow because he likes baseball, but he also is trying to help people, and I think that's like the coolest thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That if he, it's kind of like in the US when like an NFL player or an NBA player or something will say like, oh, sports kept me in the classroom and off the streets, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that's exactly a good comparison, but it's kind of the idea.
I think that's probably a great comparison,
like
just because there's no way that like every single country and every single city in the world is going to have problems with kids who don't have anything to do after school or whatever, and they end up turning to delinquency. This is like a very common thing everywhere. And it's exactly what you said. It's the same kind of thing. When you give kids like sports and stuff to do,
an outlet
like this, when you give them anything to do, all that stuff goes down, even if it's just a little bit.
Right.
And like, obviously, like we said, they're probably never going to overtake soccer, but as long as they just have a foundation there, like with all the effort he's putting in and with all the passion that he has, and it seems like it's spreading to these kids, because he mentioned they have kids driving all the way across the country.
500 kilometers, that's like 300 miles, right?
That's a lot of miles. Either their parents are driving them or they have to like get a bus or something. Right. Like one way or another. Would I drive 300 miles for a baseball game?
No.
Maybe it would depend on what kind of baseball game it was, but like generally no. And I think I'm pretty passionate about playing baseball.
Tom, it would be like me driving 6 hours to learn cricket.
Yeah, it'd be like you driving to Pittsburgh to learn how to play cricket.
Right, to learn how to play cricket. Like I would never do that. but Titus, I mean, this is going to sound stupid. I'm really proud of Titus for what he's doing. It's so cool. And he's a guy too. Like,
I hope that doesn't come off as condescending, but like exactly. Like it's genuinely like,
it really is. Like I never would have imagined that somebody was out there making such a difference. You know what I mean? And it's like inspiring. Like I want to go out now and just bang the drum for Baseball Kenya. I think it's super cool. I'm going to keep an eye on Baseball Kenya, and I hope we see a Kenyan major leaguer soon.
To all our loyal listeners out there,
to the Atlanta Braves, who we know are listening.
Yes, and our legions of fans as well. If any of you, one thing that Titus mentioned, I think I brought this up in the interview, and I think he did as well. It was earlier in the interview. A lot of their stuff gets to them through people who are like going to Kenya anyway. Just bring it with them.
Right.
So listen, I know it's a little bit of a long shot. I mean, personally, going to Kenya, I don't want to say it's not on my list of things to do, but I wouldn't say it's near the top generally in terms, mostly because it's probably really expensive. And
well, if you happen to be going there, I've actually known people who've gone there on like missions trips and stuff, or or you know what, Tom, let's make this broader. If you're going on a trip to anywhere that isn't a developed baseball country, and you reach out and see if you can bring something, bring a carry-on bag full of balls, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I'm sure if you're going to, I don't know, Uganda, right? I'm sure you could reach out to them and say, hey, I can bring some balls, So that was something to think about. I never would have thought about that, not that I'm planning on going to Kenya anytime soon, but now it's in my head. If I ever do, I'll reach out and say like, hey, I'm going to Sri Lanka. Can I bring you some baseballs? Would that help?
And understand that, if it's not brand new equipment, that's fine in a lot of these places. Like with Kenya, I mean, like legit, all they need is just gear. They don't need the best gear. What they need is stuff so that they can play the game. Because what I was thinking of, and this might be a little silly, but in Sandlot, you know how they have one baseball and they, I think, is it Smalls hits it out?
I don't know.
And then they're just like, well, Now we don't have a baseball anymore. That kind of ran through my head when I was thinking about their equipment shortages.
Right.
Like if they have a bat and it breaks, it might just be like, well, we don't have a bat anymore.
Well, not anymore, because Titus started his own bat factory.
True.
This guy is so cool. I can't get over the stuff this guy is doing. Like, if I were in that position, and I'm not, if I decided one day to be like, you know what, I'm going to try and grow the game of cricket right here, you know, something like that. And I had one cricket bat and it broke, I'd be like, well, I tried.
Yeah, well, you know what?
You know
I did
what I mean?
my best.
Like, yeah, like I wouldn't go and learn how to become a carpenter so that I could create all this stuff. Like it's so cool. And I think, man, it was so cool talking to him, and he had so much great information. I can't wait to have him on again, because there's 1,000 things we could have asked him, and I want to keep up, you know.
One thing I wanted to ask about, which I don't know if he has an answer to this yet, but he mentioned that expats basically brought the game to the country. So Americans and also the Japanese expat that he learned it from in school.
Right.
What I would be interested in, and I don't know if there's an answer to this yet, is, like I mentioned before, American baseball and Japanese baseball are very distinct in terms of, you know, the way that they're played and like the culture and everything. And part of me really wants to know, like, which one has a bigger influence over there, you know, like which kind of, like there's a little bit of a split, and I want to know kind of which path they're going down.
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's possible that there maybe just isn't one, because like the fundamentals of the game are kind of the same. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you throw the ball to first base, you throw the ball to first base. There's not a Japanese style or an American style. It might be that. I mean, I don't know, but it would be interesting. We didn't even get into like international competitions or the national team, that kind of thing. Like,
we got into the national team a little bit. It sounded like they were like recruiting for one.
Right. But I mean, like, we didn't talk at all about like, how do competitions work? Where do you go? How do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So like, we're going to have him on, because there's so much stuff. We could have done a 6-hour interview with him. So Titus, thanks so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And I hope this can help spread the word about Kenyan baseball. And again, just feel free to reach out to Titus or the Federation to see if you guys can help. And I hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to the next episode.
All right. Until then.